Hello friends, Mike Adams here with the Audacity Bootcamp. Did you know that there's a workaround for the destructive editing that Audacity does in your project? By destructive editing, I simply mean once you've edited your project and you've added effects to it, as soon as you close that project, you save it and then you close it out, you can't go back and undo anything. In that sense, editing in Audacity is destructive. In other words, it affected your file, it affected your waveform. What you've done is embedded in the waveform now, and you can't undo it once you save and close the project. While you've got the project open, you can undo what you just did as many times as you want, but once you close that project, everything that you've done to that project up to that point in time is embedded in the project. That's called destructive editing. But there's a workaround that I'm going to show you in this video. Beginning with Audacity version 3.0.0, a new feature was introduced called Backup Project, and you can use Backup Project as a workaround for destructive editing. And the way that you do that is each step along your editing path, you save a backup copy of your project. And that backup copy represents the editing that you've done up to that point in time and no further. Let me show you how I make it work. On the screen here, I've got a little project open, about a 10-second project called My Episode. You can see the title up there at the top. And then in parentheses, I put working, because this is the file that I'm going to be continually working on as I edit my project. But along the way, as I'm editing, I'm going to back this project up with a different name. So let me show you what I mean. Right now, it's just a project that is unedited. I haven't touched it. I recorded this a few minutes ago just using the internal mic on my computer, and I haven't done anything to it. It's a raw file. So it's my starting point. So right now at this point with my raw file, I want to go up to the File drop-down menu before I start doing any editing. And if I go to Save Project and then Backup Project, and you'll see that I've got a shortcut there that I created, Shift-B for Backup Project. We're going to be using that from this point on. But if I click Backup Project right here, it brings up another window and says, hey, what do you want to call your backup project? Well, I haven't done anything to it yet, and so I'm going to keep the title as My Episode, and I'm going to change working to raw. So in order to do this the way that I like to do it, I'm going to put the number 1 in front of here so that when I go back into my folder and look at the backups that I've made, they're all in order of the way that I edited them. So I'm going to call this number 1, My Episode, and then instead of working here in the parentheses, I'm going to put raw. And that tells me I haven't done anything to it. This backup copy of my project that I'm about to make is just raw audio, unedited, no effects. This was the original piece of audio that I brought into my project. And so I'm going to save this now. And when I save it, you'll notice that I'm still on my working project. It didn't do anything with my working project. It just saved a snapshot of the project at the moment in time that I backed it up. So if I go to my folder window, and again, I'm on a Mac, if I go to my folder window, you can see here is my episode that I'm working on, the working episode, and the temporary file below it, which goes away when I close out Audacity. By the way, I'm using Audacity version 3.0.2, and the things that I'm showing you here with Backup Project are only available in 3.0.0 and later. 3.0.0 was buggy. I wouldn't recommend that one. I don't even know if you can get it anymore, but I would definitely upgrade to 3.0.2 if that's in your wheelhouse. If you're on a version prior to that, you're not going to be able to do what I'm showing you here because that backup project option just isn't available there. So right above my working project, you can see that I saved off the raw project there as number 1, My Episode, and then in parentheses, raw. So let's go back to the Audacity window here for just a moment. And let's suppose that the next thing that I want to do is noise reduction. And again, let me get my cursor here toward the beginning. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And so to do noise reduction, we want, first of all, to highlight a section of the audio that doesn't have any speaking in it, and hopefully just has room noise in it. And let's apply some noise reduction to our project. In order to do that, you know how to do this. You go up to the Effect drop-down window. You select Noise Reduction. I've got settings in here that work for me in this room with this mic, this equipment. And so I don't change that setting below there. It works for me good, and I just leave it whenever I'm recording something in this room that I'm now about to edit. So all I'm going to do here is click Get Noise Profile, and that tells Audacity, what do you consider noise in this waveform? Well, this is what I consider noise in this waveform, and so now we're going to go select the entire waveform, and we're going to apply the noise reduction to it. Now, you don't have to go back up to the effects drop-down window and open up the noise reduction thing and click OK. I know people say that, and that's all over YouTube to do that, but you don't have to do that. Once you open that up and you get the noise profile, you can select the entire track and just press, in my case, Command R to reapply that effect. If you're on a Windows computer, it's going to be Control R. And when I do that, it just applies the noise profile parameters that I had in that window previously. So in other words, I don't need to come back up here now to the effect and go down to noise reduction and click that again. In fact, you can see right up here at the top of my effect drop-down window, it says to repeat noise reduction is Command R. So I don't have to go through that whole rigmarole twice in order to do that. I can just push Command R right now, and that puts noise reduction on my file. Now I'm going to save it by hitting Command S, and again, I'm still in the working file. And then the very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to back up my project because I just did noise reduction on it. It's not raw anymore. Now it has noise reduction on it. So remember, the shortcut that I had built to do backup project is Shift B. And so if I hit Shift B, it's going to bring up that backup window, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do with this one? Well, first of all, I'm going to keep the same name, but I'm going to call it 2 because it's the second effect that I put on it. And then in parentheses, instead of working, I'm going to put noise. That tells me that this file that I'm about to save, this copy of the project that I'm about to save, has noise reduction on it. So I'm going to tell it save, and life is good. I'm still on my working project. I can Command S here. I can save here all I want because this file is going to constantly change. But now if I go back to my folder window and look at what's happening, now I have the raw version of my episode with no editing, and then I have the second edit that I did that has noise reduction. All this time, I haven't touched my working project. I've just taken snapshots along the way as I am adding different effects to my project. Now let's go back to Audacity, and let's suppose for the sake of conversation that we're happy with what we've done so far. Noise reduction's good. The file looks good. We're happy with the way it sounds, the way it's looking. Now, since we've got the entire track selected, let's go up to the effect drop-down window and let's normalize it. And let's leave it at 3.0 maximum amplitude for now, and I'm going to hit OK. And so I've normalized my project. Now I can save my project again, and as soon as I save my project, I can again either go up to my File menu or use my shortcut, Shift B, and I can save another copy off of what I'm doing. And this is going to be my third edit. So if I do 3, my episode, and then instead of working, let's put normalized. If I can find all my keys on my keyboard. So now I've got 3 copies of this thing. If we go back to my folder, and they're in order, I've got the raw episode, then I did noise reduction on it, and then I did normalization on it. Now, the thing to remember is that these backup copies are cumulative. In other words, what I have there as number 3 has both been noise reduced and normalized. Everything prior to the latest backup copy has all of the previous effects on it as well. So let's continue on. Let's go back to our Audacity project real quick. And now that we've normalized it, let's come down and let's put some compression on it, shall we? So we're going to put a compressor here at a 10 dB threshold, 60 dB noise floor. That looks good. And we're going to compress based on peaks, and we're not going to make up for 0 dB. So let's click OK. And now our project's looking a little bit better. It's looking a little more even, which you would expect that when you put compression on it. I'm going to save it with Command S. And then I'm going to hit Shift B, which is my shortcut for backup. And this time I'm going to name it number 4 because it's the 4th thing that I've done. And instead of working, I'm going to put compress. And save it. Now, if I go back to my folder window one more time, you can see that I've got my raw episode, which I haven't done anything to, and then I added noise reduction to it, nothing else. and then I normalized it, and then I compressed it. Now remember, when we talk about how it's cumulative, that simply means that this number 4 file now has noise reduction on it, normalization on it, and compression on it. If I ever want to go back to before I put compression on, I can open the normalized file and it won't be compressed. I can go back and redo. I can go back and edit what I've done in the past, and it's non-destructive. Let's do a couple more things to it before I let you go. So we're going to go back to the Audacity window, and this time let's put a little bit of equalization on it. And when I do equalization, I use the filter curve. That's where I have my presets. Filter curve and graphic EQ in Audacity are pretty much the same thing. It's just two different ways of looking at the same thing. So if we go to filter curve, I want to put this effect on it. This is an effect that I use for my voice all the time. This is one that I built that takes out the lower hertz, the lower frequency rumble, and takes off some of the high as well. And so this EQ kind of complements my voice, and it's the one that I use all the time. It's one of my presets. So I'm just going to tell it okay, and let's put some graphic EQ on this. So it's graphic EQ'd. I'm going to save my working project, and then I'm going to hit Shift B once again, and I'm going to do another backup. This time it's going to be number 5. And again, instead of working, I'm going to call it filter, because I know that's the filter curve. And then let's do one more effect on it before I let you go. Let's come down here and let's put a limiter on it as well. And I'm going to put a hard limiter at a -3. Click OK. Now I'm limited. I'm going to save my project, and then I'm going to back it up. And this time it's number 6. Again, I just put the numbers on there so that they're in order when I look at them. I don't have to try and remember what I did in what order that I may have done it at that particular time. And we're just going to call this limiter. How's that? So now what I've got, if I go back to my file folder window, I've got every effect that I put on it in order. The limiter, which is the 6th effect that I put on it, has all the previous effects on it. The filter curve has the filter curve and all the previous effects. Compressed has compression and all the previous effects. And you get the idea. These accumulate from one copy of the backup to another. And so if I'm good with my project, I come back here and I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to turn this volume down a little bit because it's going to be kind of loud. Let's see what it sounds like. This is a track that I'm recording just for demonstration purposes in order to show you how to edit non-destructively in Audacity. So not a real high quality recording. Again, it's my internal speaker or my internal mic on my laptop. I was in the living room, which tends to be a little bit echoey. I wasn't trying to get perfection. I just wanted to show you a way around this. Now, when I'm done with this, I can just save my project. I can close out Audacity. And then if you're happy with the final project, you can delete all those steps if you want to. I like to back them up. I have an external drive that I back all my projects up to. I like to keep a copy of them just because, and maybe that's just me. I'm sure at some point I'll look at it and go, why did I keep all these copies? But if you want to blow them away, if disk space is a problem, get rid of them. Once you're done with your final project and you're good to go and you like it, you really don't need those temporaries anymore. But this is a good workaround for doing non-destructive editing in Audacity, because our editing in Audacity doesn't always have to be destructive. If I put a compressor on it and then I want the file without a compressor on it, I just go back to the previous step. And I can redo it, I can undo it, I can do whatever I want to it at that time. So that's the strength of Backup Project within the new Audacity. Again, I'm using 3.0.2, which is what I recommend you use, either that or a later version. And that's my workaround for doing non-destructive editing within Audacity. Hey, if you like what's going on here, please think about subscribing. I also want to remind you that I teach Audacity Bootcamp Beginner to Advanced at udemy.com. I'll have a link to that again in the description below, and if you're watching this on YouTube, it's also up in the header. And you can find me online at audacitybootcamp.com, and you can listen to the recently launched Audacity Bootcamp podcast on any podcast app. Links to all of those things are at my website at audacitybootcamp.com. I hope you liked this video. I'd like to read your comments below, so feel free to do that. Give me your thoughts on this workaround that I've developed for non-destructive editing in Audacity. And I'll see you in the next video.